And so welcome to day number 2 of talking about Harbor. Today we will be going through the maps that Harbor is probably going to be best on and maybe even meta on, or where you should be playing him the most, right? Because like most agents in the game, Harbor's going to be in that kind of level where, he's going to be good on some maps and not as good on others. So we're going to explore, how Harbor plays out and does it play well on these certain maps, in my opinion. So the first thing we need to understand is how Harbor plays, right? And let's start with the attacking side here. And to me, Harbor is not really a kind of slow, defaulty type agent. He's not one that's, gonna slowly creep up and gain, little bits of map control bit by bit and then go from there. He's very much a burst agent, right? Where you want to be using, pretty much all of his abilities, right? Let's say we were going for a B split here. You want to be doing stuff maybe where, you throw this down here and you're just going to like ability spam, right? You're going to put your wave across there. You're going to send in your C just here and you're going to just like, full on send it. Check this corner here, right? Maybe even pause the wall there if you want, right? Just keep attacking, kill whoever's in here, right? Take the B site. That is how basically I think Harbor is going to be played. He's going to be a fast burst, like, let's go. His ult kind of fits into that as well, right? Where, if you are just, let's say, in B main here, right? You're just going to ult the site, and that's just going to be your cue to go, right? This is, like, how I see this agent pretty much playing out the whole way, where you're just going to utility spam, kind of like you might with a breach sometimes, right? Where you just, like, completely send all your utility. You're just one at one, bam, 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 and then you're getting in onto the site. That is how I think Harbor will most likely play out. And on the attacking side, that is fine, but I think one of the main weaknesses that many people have pointed out with Harbor is that his defensive site anchoring is, not very strong. He doesn't have a great way of anchoring the site really at all. If 5 people are running at you as a Harbor, it's going to be very difficult to stop them. Your best ability might just be this wave, right, and just hoping to move if they've seen you into a different angle or something like that. But it's really not going to be easy, right? If you're here on site, you can't even really, it's going to be difficult even to, usefully smoke yourself off in time, before that site exec is coming in, and then you've got this long wave that your opponent's like, here, if I've messed it up slightly, right, they can come this way as well. Like, it's going to be difficult overall. And obviously, even if you are on one side of the map as well, you can't actually, smoke off your teammates on the other side of the map. Let's say they were having a problem on B. I can't smoke from A all the way across to B either. And so that could be seen as a problem as well, that I can't even support my teammates. And this has led, I think, most people to believe that Harbor, for the most part, will be a secondary controller rather than a primary controller. And I can definitely see why that would be the case. And I do agree for the most part. I do think there is still some maps where you can play him as a primary controller, and we'll get into that. But I do think that, this is where he's going to struggle. It's going to be on this defensive side. You probably don't want to be a side thing. You probably want to be playing in mid on most maps, I would guess, or, closer to the middle, so that you can, reach, both sides of a map, like I can here, right? Smoke off short, smoke off mid, and smoke off B, but I could also from short, reach the A site, of course, as well. I think that is, definitely something you want to do, but on the defensive side, I think Harbor's main advantage, again, will be retakes, right? This is how he's going to have to be played, in that kind of retake style. Let's say we're trying to retake B, right? We're going to smoke off B main. We're going to come in. We're going to use this wave again, right? We're trying to take the site. We might throw this down onto the spike, right? And get onto it, right? We're just sending it again, kind of similar to how we were on the attacking side. And I think that is how Harbor needs to be used mainly on this defensive side, as a good retake agent, not so much as a good site anchor. So with that in mind, let's quickly talk about the maps, and we'll start with Ascent. And I think, honestly, overall on Ascent, I just don't see it for Harbor. Ascent is a map where, kind of what I was just talking about with those, like, fast, you want to just be sending it or whatever. That doesn't really happen on Ascent. On Ascent, the meta is kind of, to take control of different parts of mid. You'll see a lot of pro teams, smoke off an area like that and try and take a part of mid, and then maybe go back and explore the other side of mid, and then, put pressure on different areas of the map, all of that. It's very defaulty, all that kind of stuff. Not very many, just like straight execs. You can go, it's not like impossible. You can go for straight execs, but, you wouldn't see it happening like every single round. You will get a lot of slower rounds on Ascent in general, and so I just don't think he fits the map that well. Also, I think, smoking off this A site can be a bit tricky as well, right? Let's say you're here, right, and you want to smoke off that. It can be tricky to, fully get it right. You're going to make maybe little mistakes. It's not the easiest things, easiest places to smoke off in general, and so I just don't really see it for Harbor on this map. I think, there's no real way he's going to replace Omen, because, for Omen, you have, like, a bunch of good one-ways, like this one here, that's very important, and is very, very meta. And so, yeah, I just don't really see it for Harbor on Ascent. And when it comes to Bind, I think again he's going to perhaps struggle. And the reason is one agent in particular, Viper, is very meta on Bind. And you might think, oh, well, he can, do similar things to Viper can, right? He can put this same wall that's very common for a Viper and put this orb in here and hey, this looks like a Viper setup, right? But it's not, right? Because you only get one use of this, and I think this is a big thing as well, that kind of feeds into Harbor being that kind of burst, let's go agent, is that his two abilities that you buy only have one charge, right? So as soon as you use them, you need to be using them to, really take map control or whatever it is that you want to be doing with it. You need to use it right then and there, because it's not coming back, and you only have one charge of them. So when it comes to a map like Bind, whilst yes, Viper is very meta on this map, that's the thing. I don't see a way that Harbor can ever replace Viper on this map. I just think that Harbor is almost certainly a worse Viper because of the way that the map plays out. Again, Bind is known for some like extremely small choke points, and you see agents like Rage, you see agents like Brim, Viper, right? All of these agents have things in common where it's you can stop people at those small choke points, right? A Raze nade into an area like Hooker is devastating, Viper mollies into an area like Garden or coming out of showers are devastating. Harbor doesn't have that, right? Harbor doesn't have that kind of stopping your opponent. This B site in particular is known as like one of the hardest sites to retake in the game, so you want to hold on to this site. But as we said, Harbor isn't great for anchoring the site on the whole, and so I think that, if I'm being honest, he was probably going to be competing with Viper for the slot here on Bind, and there is just absolutely no way in my mind that Harbor is going to be better than Viper on Bind. Moving on to Breeze, and unlike the other two maps that I just mentioned before, Ascent and Bind, Breeze, particularly on this A site, does have a bit of a meta of, going a bit quicker overall. I think it is a bit easier as an attacker to just, send it down on this A site. It's quite difficult for defenders to stop in general on this A site, right? It's very big. There's, a lot of space for attackers to move into. Obviously, a wall across here, like we normally see with the Viper wall, is very effective at stopping defenders. And I think overall, could I see a team trying to use Harbor on this map and, just kind of, making their A site hits, quite good and whatnot and just going for it? Yeah, I could, right? I could see that. Will I say that Harbor will definitely be a better choice than Viper on this map? I'm not willing to go that far yet, but I could see some teams trying it. I could see, it potentially having some legs here on this map because there is that, ability to go quicker overall, and I think that can benefit, and particularly on this A site. But when it comes to anchoring, again, you're gonna have that same problem, right? That if you are replacing a Viper, and maybe a team would even, maybe you should try even both. I don't know if that could work either. I don't know what you'd replace. But, when it comes to this B site, often you'll see the Viper orb in here, right? And the Viper will try and defend this B site with the mollies, and generally that is pretty effective for a Viper overall. But I don't think that Breeze is a map where I could see Viper, there's no chance that Viper will be replaced, right? I don't think the ult gets as much value on Breeze for a Viper, right? I think, the orb and the mollies here in B main are fine, but, other than that, I don't think anyone has found like a wall setup either that, you see a lot of pro teams use different Viper walls in general for how they want to use their Viper wall, so I don't think there's like one setup that everyone knows is very strong either on Breeze. So I don't think the Viper is irreplaceable on Breeze. I think that the anchoring thing here on B might be the difference of Viper versus Harbor here, but I do think that some teams might try Harbor, and try for a more just general retake setup, on Breeze, and, maybe fight more for mid and play retakes on the sites, right, and just use Harbor as a part of that. Obviously, Harbor is pretty good against ops with all the different, line of sight blocking he has as well, and obviously we're on Breeze, which has a lot of ops, so I do think there is potential here on Breeze. Next, we'll come to Fracture, and Fracture is a map where I actually think that Harbor, I could see maybe being played on his own, and I know that that will surprise some people, because some people will be saying, no, he has to be a second controller on this map, but I actually think that isn't quite the case. Paper Rex used to play Viper, solo Viper, on Fracture, right, and they found success with solo Viper on Fracture in general, and I would kind of be surprised if they didn't go solo Harbor on this map, because I think he can do it. I think, for one, a lot of the other dome smokers can't smoke this off anymore, right? After the map change, the dome smokers, well, they're kind of useless here. Whereas Harbor actually is kind of perhaps the one who can, and I'll probably will mess this up, but, you can do something like this, right? Where it comes across all of that, right? It comes across all of that and they can't see. And then, if you're better at it than me, you can get it in here as well. And maybe even curve it, you see I put it there. Maybe you can even curve it across here if you actually, get very good at it. I think that Harbor will be very good on this map because he fits the map very well. As I said, Harbor is very good for just util spam, let's go, you know, very fast execs, and isn't good at holding sites, and is good for retakes. That is how Fracture is played all of the time now, right? We get a bunch of these neon comps where it's just like, I'm going to attack this way. The defensive side are going to run out one way, right? So the defensive side might say, we're going to attack this. You know, the attacking side saying, we're going to attack this. And then it just ends up in a retake, right? That is how Fracture is played for the most part now. Harbor fits that really, really well, right? That is exactly what Harbor wants. And I think overall, I can see it. I can see Harbor, you know, getting played. I mean, you have a, you know, a decent ult here as well, obviously, from underneath. This is the same, like, area of effect thing, right? Coming from down here. That's pretty good overall. You can do a pretty nice, easy wall that goes off all three other areas if you're coming from arcade, right? Something like this that goes across there, there, and there. That's a nice little smoke that's very, very easy to do overall, so you can do that pretty easily, right? I think that there is definitely advantages for Harbor, that he fits the map very well on Fracture, that the dome smokers got worse because of, you know, the changes to the map recently, that, you know, no dome smoker is really that useful across this anymore, whereas Harbor will be more useful there. I think that there is real opportunities here for Harbor on this map, and I think that that might surprise some people, but I honestly think he might fit the map a bit better for the way it's played, because you're going to be aggressive, right? On the defensive side, teams are very aggressive on Fracture. You kind of need to be with the way the map is designed, you know, and certain things like this, I can absolutely see, you know, this wave coming down here and a neon running in behind it and stunning, and, you know, breach stun comes in as well, and they flash behind it with a K. You can see that, right? That is definitely going to be a thing that happens, and the Brim, other than the stim beacon like pushing out, right, a Brim might just smoke off like this instead, right? But I actually think that, you know, the wall, the pushing wall, might be more useful overall, right? Because it kind of is slowly getting there, right? When you put the Brim smoke here, there's no guarantee that they haven't already got past it. Whereas, you know, when it comes to that moving smoke, it kind of, you know, kind of slowly pushes you forward instead, which I think is perhaps going to be a bit more useful overall. And I think I could see Harbor being meta on this map, and I could see definitely Paper Rex are definitely going to play Harbor on this map. So if you enjoy Paper Rex, then there you go, that's all you need to know. Haven is a map that I think kind of suits him. You see a lot of retakes on Haven. You see a lot of, like, burst execs on Haven. In particular, there is big problems with this A area. This is often a common fighting ground just here. And, again, certain things like this wall that comes down here, very, very good. If they've got a chamber up down there, right, you know, this is very good. In general, I think this is one of Chamber's better maps. You know, there's a ton of different op angles for a Chamber to play on, or a Jet, or whoever, right? You know, you can be on top of this box. There's basically, all across the map, there's good areas for an op to be on, maybe other than Garage. And I think, you know, for an agent like Harbor to be able to stop that, right, doing something like this, you know, if an op is standing up on top of this box, which they often will in high-level games, you know, this wall, pretty good for getting you down onto C and making that op's life a kind of misery. And I do think that there is some advantages here for Harbor, and that a team might try it out. Now, double controller, and I do think you would have to be double controller on Haven, and that is something that we haven't seen a ton of, really, in general. But I think it's possible. As I said, you get a lot of retakes on Haven, right? That's kind of, you know, a common way to play the map, particularly obviously on this B site. Retake is very, very common. And I think that if you were playing Harbor, normally the controller plays C on Haven if you're playing on your own. But I think for Harbor, you will probably want to be on this B site where, you know, you can, again, help out on both sides with smokes, right? You can just very quickly, you know, help out on both sides of the map from this B site, right? That's, I think, where you'll want to be smoking from in general, so that you can reach and help out your team with your smokes. But I think Harbor has a chance. I think he's decent enough, right? The ult covers, you know, all three sites very, very well. I mean, this B site covers a massive amount of that B site. But yeah, the ult covers the sites very, very well in general, right? For retakes, again, all for taking the site. And I think the way the map plays out, I could see Harbor on this map, or at least being worth experimenting with on this map for sure. I think that he fits it pretty well, and I think because of how, you know, many different op angles there can be, having an agent like Harbor in there, you know, can be pretty useful. Now let's come to Icebox, and I know the first question that comes to mind when you're thinking about Icebox is, will Harbor replace Viper on Icebox, right? Chris, tell me, is that what's going to happen? And my answer is to you, honestly, probably not. I don't see a world in which Harbor replaces Viper on Icebox. I think that this wall, you know what I was talking about on Breeze, where there isn't like a wall that everyone agrees upon? Everyone agrees upon this wall. That this wall on the defensive side from a Viper is very, very strong, right? It stops them coming in onto the site, and it's a very good retake wall, and you can put it up and down, you know, consistently throughout a round. Very, very effective, you know, and then you've got the Viper Orb that you commonly see be put on B as well, where, you know, it'll sometimes be on here, or an orb might come in here as well to try and stop the spike plant. Either of these orbs, very, very strong as well from a Viper, right? And I think that those things just in general on the defensive side make Viper too strong on this map to replace. However, when it comes to Icebox, there tends to be 4 meta agents, right? The Sage, Viper, Chamber, and Sova. Those agents tend to be not touched too much. Some teams might drop a Sage every now and then. Some teams might drop a Chamber now and then. Some teams might go for Fade over Sova. But in general, those 4 agents are pretty meta on this map. But the 5th one is a bit up for grabs, right? Some teams go Killjoy, some teams go Jet, some teams go KO, right? KO is kind of the main one. But I was thinking, I do wonder if Harbor could replace that 5th slot. Could Harbor make it in as your 5th? Instead of, you know, replacing a Sage or replacing a Viper instead. And the reason that I say that is because I've seen a video of where someone puts down this orb and puts the wall as well. Alright, you put a Sage wall with it, and it takes more than a whole clip for a Phantom or a Vandal to destroy, you know, both a segment of a Sage wall and destroy your orb as well. So that is not going to be great for them, that they are going to need multiple people to be able to spam just to break one block of a Sage wall, right? If you put both down at the same time. So that's probably going to, you know, be a good way of guaranteeing a spike plant is using both at the same time. That's very good. But I think if you're going to use Harbor, you might change the way that this map is played, because Icebox tends to be a map where a lot of teams will just go A, go B, right? 5-stack, one of the most boring maps in the game. In fact, the most boring map in the game by far. But I think Harbor has potential in coming towards mid with stuff like this, right? Where you put up a wall like this, and generally coming here in mid is still suicide, even if you can do this, even if you can smoke that off, because you still have multiple angles to deal with, right? But this time, you can send this out, right? And I think that this crashing wave here is going to just give you a ton more space when it comes to these mid execs, right? You're just going to be able to just get a lot more, you know, like angle denial vision of you in general. And I think that that is how we actually might see this played. You might even not even do a wall there, right? You might even do this across here first to get you through that. And then I'm just doing it on the fly here, but, you know, do some kind of wall as you walk in. And then I think that this down here is just so good, right? Just so good for just pushing you forward through this angle, maybe even putting it up there, right? And then just getting really in your face, right? And then maybe, you know, you do whatever from there. I think that that is how you might see Harbor used on this map. And you can obviously fake stuff with this as well, right? You could all just be outside A, and then your Harbor just does this for you, right? Your Harbor just really fakes Ascend it, right? Just really does all of this, and how does your opponent know how many people are here, right? They have no idea. And then the rest of your team just goes and exits on A. Those are the kinds of things that I think could happen, where Harbor could really shake up the way the map is played, because right now, you know, a lot of teams just go A, they go B. It's pretty predictable. You know, it works, but it's pretty predictable. But I think a team might be like, well, we can really surprise our opponents here, right? We can cook some things up by adding Harbor into the mix, right? Maybe you get a lineup to land on top of here with the Q, right? Maybe you do that. Or maybe you even just send the wave down there as well, right? Maybe you just send the wave this way instead, and you actually go for an A split instead, right? And if you are playing it along with Viper, right? Maybe you put your orb in there for a Viper, right? Then maybe you wall all of this off. Why not, right? Just wall all of this off and just attack this A site all the way up the stats, right? Like, these are the kind of weird things that I think Harbor makes possible on this map. And I think I wouldn't replace Viper and I wouldn't replace Sage if it was me. But maybe he can get into that 5th slot and really, you know, ramp things up. And then, of course, on the defensive side, that means, you know, if your Viper dies, if your Sage dies, well, you still have a wall, right? You still have the orb for potentially trying to defuse the spike, right? There are options there that he can kind of, you know, mitigate if that, you know, agent has died. We still have some of the tools still available to us overall. And in general, Icebox is a pretty heavy retake map. So I think he also fits the map in that kind of sense as well. And finally, we come to Pearl. And when the rumblings first were made about Harbor and the fact there was going to be an ability in the game that stops bullets, I thought that Harbor was going to be super meta on Pearl because he allowed you to plant the spike just here, right? Because if you can plant the spike there on that chicken, what that means is that you can just all come back here as a team and just absolutely destroy from so far away. It makes a retake very, very difficult for your opponents, right? And so when that was first announced, there was going to be some kind of blocking ability of bullets. I thought, well, he's going to be super meta on Pearl just for that alone. But now that we've seen this ability, right, and it's not that hard to break, and you probably won't reliably be able to plant the spike here either way with it, now I have my doubts, right? Because it's not that Harbor, I think, is going to be bad on this map. I think he's still going to be pretty good, right? He can still, do a lot of what Viper was doing already on this map. I think he's going to be okay. I think teams might try it, and we'll have to see. Obviously, we are still figuring out Pearl as the whole, right, on a whole, right? Like, we don't know anything really about Pearl yet. A lot could still change about how this map is played. But I do think that Harbor has a chance, but he's not going to be super meta like I initially thought he would, because this ability of blocking bullets isn't as powerful as I, expected. And I think many people probably, expected it to be super powerful. But it's actually, not perhaps as strong as we initially thought. And so I don't think that Harbor will be like super, yes, 100% pick rate on Pearl. I think he'll be a more experimental choice, and we'll have to see. And so those are my thoughts about Harbor on all of the different maps. I'd be excited to know what you think about Harbor on these different maps and where you think he will be meta or not. But with that said, thank you so much for watching and have a nice day.